we're going to start with the first question, which is a couple of people asked, I'm just looking for general information on all three of your VBS programs so then they can make a decision. We've got a really great tool to help you with that. We have a VBS overview chart, and we're going to pop the link to that in the chat, and that's going to give you a side-by-side comparison of our three programs. We have Stellar VBS, which is our 5-day VBS program, 3 hours long. It has elementary and preschool options and also a component for youth. So if you like to have your middle school or your kind of older, teens participate in VBS instead of volunteering, there is a special leader guide just for them. Our Babylon is our Holy Land Adventure VBS program where kids are literally going to step back in time. You're going to transform your church into a Babylonian market, and they're just going to go back and experiencing the story of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. It's a very immersive experience. And then our weekend VBS program is our 2-day, 2.5-hour program, which is a great option for churches if you've never done VBS before. Maybe you are a smaller church, maybe you are limited on volunteers or resources. It's just a great way to do a VBS program, but just do it on a smaller scale. And so those options are out there, and the comparison chart will really be a great way for you to see what will fit your church environment best. We also have something else that just released today, and that is our VBS preview overviews. We have a less than 20-minute video for all three of those programs that we just mentioned, where you can go in and we will show you all of the Bible content, program highlights. We really give you a good taste of what is in store for that VBS program. And so in the chat, you can see the different links that are showing up for those. So you'll want to do that later, not right now while we're here. But then after you watch those preview videos, if you have additional questions, we of course want you to answer those to us, and we'll give you our contact information at the end. But vbsteam@group.com is where you can always send any questions that you might have regarding our VBS previews. So that's our first question that we've answered there. Jody, we've got a couple of people who have asked or said, I've never used a group VBS before. What do I need to know? Now, the first thing I want to say is, as a VBS director, this coming summer of 23 will be my 33rd year of leading VBS. Yes, I started when I was an infant. One of the things I would say is you are in for a great experience if you're going to use a group VBS for the very first time. And one of the things that I appreciate about it is that kids are in small groups. They get to rotate to different stations. And from a volunteer perspective, your volunteers are only going to prepare 20 minutes of material, and then kids are going to rotate to them. And you really can recruit your volunteers based on their area of giftedness. So if you're a person that likes activity and games, then being at the game station is the right place for you. If you love worship and being up front in front of a larger group of people, that opening sing and play or the closing time is a good fit for you. But Jody, I want to ask you, what are some other differentiators that come to mind when you think about a church that's never used our VBS program before?
Yeah, you hit on some key things. The small groups are a big differentiator. If you're used to, we have a class of first graders, maybe 20 kids. We have a class of second graders or even second, third, and that's 10, 20 kids. This is going to look really different because you're going to have small groups of about 5 kids and 1 teenage or adult crew leader. And those crews are going to then rotate in larger groups. So you might have 3 crews who rotate all together to games and Bible adventures and imagination station and Kidbit cinema. They're going to rotate all together. And that I think one thing that makes this really unique is it's relationship rich. And we really want kids to develop relationships, not only with each other, but with a caring adult, somebody outside their family who knows and cares about them and gets to know them. So it's really set up to maximize relationship with kids, with a caring adult, and of course with Jesus. And that's really the focus of everything. And another differentiator is that I know if you've used another program, it might have a daily theme. And we have an actual daily Bible point that is spoken verbatim by every leader there. And so kids walk away with that repetition of shine Jesus light, or when life is dark, shine Jesus light. And they'll say that again and again. And I think that repetition really, really cements the Bible truth really, really deep beyond their head, just into their heart. So those are some key things as kids experience it. It's really a unique experience for kids and leaders.
Jody, one other thing that comes to mind is with our Stellar VBS program, Imagination Station is unique to Group VBS. It is our science-based rotation where kids are just experiencing everyday objects and how God created this amazing world and place and how we use these things. And they have these wow experiences. And can you just share a little bit about how that might be different for churches who've never used our program before?
Yeah, I know. I think we get used to like, oh, VBS has to have a craft that kids take home every day. And as we talked with leaders like you and kids and said, what do you want to do? What would really be fun, or what's a frustration? Kids are really into science and discovery. And so that's where Imagination Station was born. And really, I love when we come to Imagination Station at our field tests, because kids get to do things. Kids get to, this year, they get to learn about the stars and the God that made the stars. And the cool thing with space is that we get to keep pointing it back to God. And God made those things, and how cool that is. So kids get to actually do science experiments and understand that God is the one that put all that science into play. God made all the science rules, so to speak, and we just get to marvel at it. So it's a lot of doing instead of making. And that's been a really, really key difference, that kids walk away and they want to go home and say, guess what? This does this, and this is such a cool thing. So there's so much more excitement. I think when kids come to that, we would stand back and watch what happened in Imagination Station versus crafts, where kids would walk away. Kids would come and just be on the edge of their seat, like, I can't wait to see what's going to happen today. And that's really, really fresh thing.
Exciting. Yes. So keeping on with our questions here, because we promised 1 hour together here. Next question is, what would we say is the best curriculum for a smaller church to use? And they actually gave a number of 35 kids. And for me, I initially think about our weekend VBS program. It is designed to have less supplies. It has less rotations. It's a smaller amount of time. It's only two days, and then a 30-minute worship experience on a third day. And so it's just a smaller scale VBS. It has all the great things of all of our 5-day VBS programs. They're, relational, experiential, applicable. We're pointing kids to Jesus. It's high energy. It's just a shorter amount of time for that. So that would be what I would say to that question. But Jody, I want to ask you this question. We have the opposite end. What is the best option for 200 plus students? I'll let you take that one.
Any Group VBS? The answer is yes. It really, we've seen large churches do a weekend program because they feel like we're so big, we just want a big impact, shorter event. We've had churches of hundreds of kids who do our easy VBS, and it's really fun when you have large churches who do the Holy Land, because it feels like the actual city of Babylon is right there. So it really, they all work for a larger church as well.
That's great. So moving on, this person is asking, is there a way for me, I've never used Group before, to network with churches in my area that would be using the same VBS program? And yes, we have a great social media presence with Group, and Julia on our team manages that for us. And Julia, what would you say would be some ways to get people connected with other churches?
Yep, we can. I'm not sure if we have the links. I can share those in the chat so everybody can join. But there are different Facebook groups. We have one for each of our VBS programs. So what I see pretty often is people saying, like, I'm in North Dakota. You can just say your city, the state that you're in, and that's a great way to connect with other churches in that area, because we have hundreds of different VBS directors that are part of that group, and that's just something that's constantly happening. They'll post where they're from, and they want to either just collaborate with decorations or bounce ideas off of each other, whatever it is. So we can put those links in the chat so people can join those groups.
Awesome. I think another kind of old-fashioned thing that I like to do is I like to just get together and go for coffee with the other children's leaders in our area. There's been a lot of transition in ministry leaders. And so just physically head to Starbucks and just say, hey, if you serve in kids ministry, we're going to meet on this day at this time. And then just build some face-to-face relationships and see. And another way is our Group VBS programs have outdoor banners. And a lot of times you will notice those as you're driving around in your neighborhood in the early spring and summer. And just say, oh, if you see one of those banners, that's the same program that you're using, just hop on and connect up with that church there, because networking is the best way. I think having led VBS for the past 32 years, we can do so much more when we partner together. And I think there used to be kind of a old school mentality where people were like, well, I want my VBS to be the biggest and best in town. And no. I think the way to think about it is let's collaborate and let's share our decorations and help each other out. And if our VBS is full because we're at capacity, encourage them to go to the church down the road that's doing the same program, but has room to take more kids. And so let's work together, because we can do so much more together in sharing and pulling off an amazing outreach for kids during the summer months. So Jody, I have another question for you. This person is wondering if we have Bible story videos that we would show during our opening and closing celebrations.
Yeah, I think that goes back to a differentiator between group and maybe something that they're used to having, they show this Bible story up front like that. And opening is really where we set the stage for the day. We're going to introduce the Bible truth, the Bible point, and the verse for the day, and make sure kids understand what that is and kind of how that applies to our lives before we jump into the day. And then Bible adventures, they do not just sit and watch a video for Bible adventures. Bible adventures, they are up and down. They are shining lights all over. We're traveling with the wise men to take gifts to Jesus. We're being donkeys in the parade of Palm Sunday. So Bible adventures happens in a station with a smaller group of kids led by that dynamic Bible adventures leader, where kids are really going to experience the heart of the Bible adventure with every sense, with all of their senses. So no, we don't have a video that tells the Bible story, but at closing, we do have Spotlight VBS, which is a video slideshow that actually features your kids, that somebody has taken photos of the kids, and there's a pre-recorded script that takes them through the Bible story. So they get to have their picture taken, and then you match that up with a slide that tells the Bible story. And we've actually found the cool thing with that is the parents and grandparents and babysitters who come in to watch, they get the Bible story at that point. So that's actually a very cool thing.
Absolutely. And
there's not a video.
Right. But the thing I do think is really exciting and how we do our VBS is that opening is where we really set up the day with what the Bible point is. We have worship together. They meet the Bible buddy. They get that Bible point that's going to be said and experienced at all the different rotations. And then also in that closing celebration time, we have some really cool, I like to call them wow experiences, where they are a science experiment that just, again, really wraps up that day. So I would say that the opening and closing are just high energy, high impact, and kids love them as much as they love going to Bible adventures.
Absolutely.
Yes. So people are asking a question about how do we work with a low budget? And again, having served right alongside you doing VBS, one of the things that I rely on is asking our church for donations. And I feel like Group makes it pretty easy. We have some templates included in the director go-to guide and on your clip art and resources CD or in the digital download center, where you can, create a donation tag and then be theme created. At my church, we are likely, because we're going to be doing Stellar, we are likely going to have a galaxy of needs with stars, and then people will be able to just take that item off of our galaxy and then bring that back to our church. Or you could go the other way. You could create a galaxy as you've received the donation. So just having some fun, creative, themey ways, I think, is one way, by asking your church to to be a part of VBS, especially if they are people that don't have children in the program. I find that our empty nesters, our seniors, they love to support Vacation Bible School. And if they physically can't be there, helping with donations or prepping before and after is something that they're very willing to be a part of. The other thing is that more and more churches are having a registration fee for VBS, and my own church included. And some of that is helping people be committed. It doesn't have to be a large amount of money, but our culture is so tied to, if it's going to be good, it has to cost some kind of money, or there's a commitment in there. And so I know that having a donation or registration fee is something to consider. Another thing that has worked great at my church and in a lot of other churches is inviting other parts of your church body, like the women's ministry, the men's ministry, to sponsor parts of VBS. Like maybe the men's ministry is going to sponsor your imagination station experience kits for kids, or maybe the student ministries is going to work and help gather up the game supplies and maybe even staff the game area. So we just need to be creative in using resources that we have in people and outside donations. And it's pretty powerful if you ask a family, would you be willing to sponsor the Bible book for kids or the Bible memory buddies that have the scripture on it? It's not just sponsoring like a gizmo or a gadget. You're giving them a piece of God's word as part of that sponsorship, and that is really powerful.
Yeah, I think the other thing there that does a couple things. One is that it makes VBS not just children's ministry; it's a whole church endeavor. We are all pouring our hearts and time and resources into the future of the church. And it really takes it beyond just children's ministries, that thing that happens over there. And I don't have kids. This is something our church is getting behind because we believe in our community. We believe that God is doing great things in our church and with kids. So it's really inspiring. It really takes VBS beyond that. My parents are senior citizens, and they live in Sun City, and with all the old people. And their church, they try to go to their church with the young people, but they have people who can sponsor a crew. And so for $25, you can sponsor a crew, and that's going to give kids, X, Y, and Z. We have also had another friend who they saw the buddies, and they came and said, what would it take to provide those for our church? We think those are cool, and we want kids to have scripture. What would it take for that to happen? So I think it's just, number one, it's asking. It's maybe packaging your ask differently and saying, we want someone to provide this, and getting people involved and seeing it as this is the future of the church, and we want to do something amazing. We need everybody in on this.
Great. So the next question is, what does follow-up look like for kids who have gone to a group VBS program? And my answer to that is, it is what you make it to be. We give you some suggestions in our director materials. At my church, we intentionally invite VBS kids and families back to worship the Sunday right after VBS. We have the kids sing in service, and that's just an exciting time. They wear their t-shirts. We also then invite our VBS families back for our fall festival or trunk or treat. We invite them to our Christmas event. We always do a family Christmas event in December, to our Christmas Eve services, and then back again in Easter for our whatever we do for kids and families for a special Easter event, and then Easter worship. And we've really kind of struck a good rhythm in inviting families back. And it's interesting to see how VBS was that thing that started bringing them to the church, and then they come back for those other things. And if they get invited 4 times in the course of a year, you are very likely to see them that next September when you start launching your fall ministries again, because you've had 4 different touch points. Oftentimes they will start to come to your Sunday morning programming on a regular basis. Excuse me. But invitation is important.
And I think while you get your drink, I would say follow-up follow-up is something you plan from the beginning. It's not something we think about partway through the week. It's something we're planning at the very beginning to know and be intentional about what we want that to look like. What is your goal? And that comes back to, why do you do VBS? What's your goal for doing VBS?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we are going to jump into some stellar focused questions. That was the bulk of our questions, and we're going to kind of be rapid fire here. The first question, I'm going to ask Megan to share a slide, is what stories and scriptures and verses are going to be used, and what does it share about Jesus? And so if we can have that slide, we're going to go day one. So you can see on screen what day one is going to hold for us. And again, we're starting with the story of Jesus. And you might think, oh, it's Christmas in the summer, but the way that it's done is so exciting and so fresh and so different. And then you can go on to the next slide. So you can see the scripture, the story, and the Bible point. And then you're also getting a sneak peek at our Bible buddy there for day two. And then moving on to day three. And move on to day four. And Jody, do you want to say something about how we handle day four in Group VBS? Because I do feel like that's a little different, maybe.
Well, Dave, you can see
Intentional.
that we're going through the life of Jesus this year, which is great. And day 5 getting into the apostles and what happened after Jesus went back to heaven. So that's very cool. But day 4 is always, we always say it's always day 4. And that's been very intentional so that in those small groups that we talked about, that kids have a chance to, and the crew leaders have a chance to understand where kids are at. I think when if we present the gospel right on day 1, we don't know what kids have understood about Jesus. We don't know what they've ever heard about Jesus. It allows us to build a little bit of a foundation so that they really understand Jesus' love for them, who he is, why they need Jesus, what that means, rather than kind of dumping it on kids all at once just to say that it's done. We want to be, we love the parable of the sower and the seed, and we want to prepare that soil. And so when we know that that soil is ready, and really truly God knows when it's ready, but we just want to be good stewards of our time. So day 4 is typically when we have done a gospel presentation, and then we really leave it up to churches. If it's your tradition to do a certain kind of a opportunity for kids to make a faith decision, that is up to you. We're not going to script that in, because we serve so many churches of different faith traditions and even terminology and how they talk about that decision. So we have left that up to you, but that's generally the opportunity and the best time to do that. And I would say either in Bible or at closing, but really focusing on those small groups. So it's happening in small group where a leader can actually have a conversation with the child about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our next question is kind of related. These are all kind of content related questions right now. What to do to maximize our time with kids, and lesson materials and tips on being intentional with the information. And one of the things that I appreciate about Group VBS is that we field test our curriculum with kids and have experiences, and we've really tried to work out all the kinks. So when you get your starter kit, you are getting the very best experiences that we know work. And so you don't have to spend a lot of time redoing things. You literally just need to follow it as it's written. There might be a couple of little tweaks that you need to make for your environment, but I find in my church environment, there's very little that we have to do to modify. We just follow it as it is, and it's great. And knowing that each station kind of, stands alone, but they're all going and saying that same Bible point, you're all reinforcing that together. If you would change up your station, then you're going to kind of disconnect, or the recipe might not turn out as we know it does when you do all these things in a certain order and have all these experiences together. And so I encourage you, if you've never used Group VBS before, for the first time, try it as it is, because I think about being, trying a new recipe. If I'm going to make a new stew this fall and I'm not sure about the seasonings, how do I know I don't like it if I've never tasted it yet? But I encourage you to try it as it is the first year, and then see if there are any little small tweaks that you need to make. But my experience has been that there's very little that I need to modify, because we've thought about how to maximize relationships with kids and leaders and connecting them to Jesus and all of that stuff. We're so intentional because of our learning philosophy. Jody, we have another content question that's for you as our executive director here. Why did we choose the buddies for Stellar that reflect astrology?
So our buddies this year are so fun. Our buddies
Glow
do
in the dark.
reflect astronomy, not astrology, which is interesting. We actually have a conversation about this in Imagination Station with kids. I think it's on day 2. But we talked about how astrology is when people look to the stars or the heavens to get signs about what's going to happen. We look to God for that. But astronomy is studying those amazing things that God made out in space. And so we have had a blast just pointing kids to these incredible things like the moon and stars and comets and the sun and planets that God crafted and put up in space. So it's been a really cool thing. Kids might hear about astrology and think that's stars. And we say, no, that's astronomy. And that's just the study of those things that God made. So it's been a great way. We're used to having animals, but this was a cool way to point kids to other things that God made that aren't little puppies or things with fur and feathers and fins, but things that he made up in the sky.
Yes. Another question we have is there a way to condense the 5 days to a 4 days? Because at my church, we do a Sunday through a Wednesday experience. And yes, if you are not able to do 5 days, we recommend you do the first day because that's going to introduce the program. And for Stellar, it's going to be introducing who Jesus is. And then day 3 is Palm Sunday. And then day 4 is Jesus' death and resurrection and kind of moving on. And so day 2 is the day that we would recommend skipping this year for Stellar VBS if you can't do 5 days, but can only do 4 days. What's new for Easy VBS for 2023? Jody, do you want to start by sharing just a little bit about the snack format?
So we've been listening and see, we love these questions and we love your feedback because it really does guide us for future years. Snack is simpler than ever. Everything is prepackaged snacks that connect to the buddy in the verse. So for example, we have little clementine cutie oranges for the day that we have Saul the sun, and we call them Fun Suns. So easy, allergy-free, germ-free, hand those out. We field tested it and kids loved them. That was like, okay, fruit, really? But yeah, they loved it. So everything is prepackaged, easy to hand off. So it's very easy for germs. It's easier for collecting and getting supply donations. And we have a cute little card that connects it with the buddy with the verse on it. So super easy.
Awesome. I'm going to call in a couple of my other teammates here. Tracy, can you tell us a little bit about some of the improvements that we've made if you purchase the Plus Digital Kit? This past year, we made the switch from USBs to the Digital Download Center. And again, we've heard some feedback. And can you just kind of give some updates on improvements to that? And then also share a little bit about our new fresh way for families to get music?
Oh, yeah. We've been working on a lot of stuff in the digital world, kind of coming out of the whole COVID thing. The whole world has become very digitally oriented and digitally capable. And, we launched the Digital Download Center last year with VBS, and it was a little cumbersome to use because we had to kind of wrap up a lot of files into zip packages for downloading and so forth. But we've kind of totally reworked that now, and the Digital Download Center this year will be much more like using a USB that you did in the past. It's going to have the file folder structure that you're used to, just kind of like your file folder structure on your computer. You can dig into the files. You can actually preview the files, whether they're PDFs or video or music. You can preview them right there on the Download Center before you download it. So you can see what you're about to download and get a good look at everything. And it's going to be, I think, a lot easier system to use. It's very intuitive, and I think it'll work out well for everybody. The Download Center is great too, because as things come up, or you guys have questions about things, or we start seeing things that need to be answered, we can put that stuff right in there at the moment we find that out and make that available to everyone. So that's going to be a great part of that as well. So it's kind of a living, breathing as we work and as we go through VBS system. So we're looking forward to seeing your response to that, and hopefully it'll be great. The other thing is music. Another issue we've had with music, obviously CDs are going away and have been going away for quite some time. And you know, if you've bought a new car or a new computer or anything like that lately, you will see it does not have a CD drive in it anymore. So we recognize that, and we've been offering digital downloads for music. But we also recognized recently there have been a number of problems with that, because mobile devices like these great telephones aren't as friendly to downloading files as they used to be. And people don't use things like iTunes anymore to sync to their computer. So what we've done is we are working on doing a streaming music delivery system. So essentially what it will operate much the same if you provide music to your VBS kids, if you give them CDs or if you give them the download cards. These will be like the download cards, except they will be streaming cards. So these cards will have a code on them. They'll go to a website, enter that code, and it will unlock that album of songs for them. And it's next level, because it's not just the album of songs, it's going to be the music videos. So they will actually get to view the videos, and they can either do it on the website where they'll set this up, or they can download a mobile app, which they can put on their mobile device, their tablet, their phone, and they can do it through that. And it also has offline functionality, so you don't have to use up streaming bandwidth. You can just view it offline, just like you do with Netflix, Spotify, those sorts of things. So that is in the works now, and that will be coming out for 2023, and we're looking forward to seeing how that works out for everybody.
Awesome. Tracy, there's a question for you in the chat. If people will be receiving a USB when they purchase the Plus Digital kit?
No, the Plus Digital kit will not have a USB. It will have an access code to the Digital Download Center that I was just describing. So essentially, you'll enter that code on the Digital Download Center, and that will give you access to all of the digital files for your program.
And honestly, having a church where we have lost the USB multiple times, that's exciting for me. One less thing to keep track of or
Yes.
pass around to somebody, just to give it access.
No one has lost the Digital Download Center yet.
That's great. That's great. We have two other things that are new in 23, and I'm going to ask Megan to share about our gift registry and sling backpacks.
Yeah, so gift registries aren't just for babies and weddings anymore, you guys. We have developed a group gift registry. It'll be available launching in early 2023. So look for it in January, February. But what it's going to do is allow directors, children's ministers to add items that they would kind of almost like a wish list to a registry, and then they can share that link directly with their congregation so that they can go on and purchase items that they would like for VBS. So obviously that's just a high level view of it, but we're really excited about it and just kind of, again, streamlining ways to involve the whole church in VBS. So that's exciting. And then we also have sling backpacks, which this is just for Stellar VBS. And basically they're just a non-woven backpack that has the Stellar logo on it. And it can, you could use those as gifts. You can use them as crew bags. They're a little hardier than the plastic bags that we also sell. So lots of exciting stuff happening.
That's awesome. Tracy, we have one other question that's related to digital things that I'd love for you to address, and that is, could you just clarify what elements of digital materials can be posted online and or shared with families of participants at a VBS?
Yeah, great question. We obviously we went through a lot of things the last few years, and there were a number of ways churches were trying to do VBS. We saw people doing online VBS and hybrid VBS, as they do in person and online, and all of those sorts of things. Really, as we come out of that, you know, Group VBS and everything these guys have talked about, it is built for relationship, and it is built for face-to-face interactions. And so that's really where we intend to be and have always intended to be. So technically, I mean, when you get your starter kit, all of that stuff is licensed for you guys to use face-to-face. We know there are sometimes special situations, and you know, as those come up, we try to address those one by one. But in general, the materials that are part of VBS are for in-person use, and we don't really license them by default for any kind of online use. There are situations that we do allow, and there's actually a document that will be in your Ultimate Director Guide, and it goes through the permissions and the uses in detail of all the different things. But essentially, you know, if a lot of people do a kickoff kind of service in church, or a lot of people do kind of a wrap-up service to VBS, and they'll have the kids sing the songs, or they might do a skit or something. Those kind of things, absolutely, we encourage you to do, and we allow you to do, as long as you have, when they involve music, as long as you have the right CCLI licensing to do that. So if you have the appropriate CCLI licensing to do that music, that's fine. If you're in one of those special situations, and if you've got something a little different going on, or if you know the environment you're in is requiring different things, I just encourage you to reach out and email permissions@group.com. And like I say, we try to address all of those situations as best we can. And they'll get back to you, most cases within 24 hours. So any of that, just send those on, and I'll put that in the chat here as well, that email address. But we'd be glad to address all of those as they come up.
Thanks so much. Jody, I have a question for you. The music from Group seems to be targeting older kids. What about the younger ones, 6 to 9?
We have not forgotten the little ones as well. We know that the older kids tend to be a little choosier with music. Their cool radar is on high alert, and so we want the music to really reach your older kids. But we've kept our secret recipe of simple words, repetitive lyrics, things like that make it easy for younger ones to sing along, move along, and that kind of a thing. So we feel like we've really hit a good balance with that, making it cool enough for the older kids to get in there and worship and really make it about worship, but not making it too wordy or not younger kids friendly. So I think it's there.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to run through a few logistic questions that we have here. The first one is, how many hours a day should VBS be? Our VBS programs that are 5-day. Stellar is a 3-hour program. Our Babylon VBS program is 2.5 hours. You can have it be 3 by adding 5 minutes. And then the weekend VBS program is 2 days that are 2.5 hours, and then that 30-minute worship celebration. So hours a day kind of depends on which program you choose. Traditionally, VBS programs have been 5 days a week for 3 hours. Question, when's the earliest we will receive our kits? This is a Stellar person. January 2nd, Stellar will start shipping out of our warehouse. Here's something fun to know. The sooner you order your kit, the sooner you're in the queue, because they do ship out in the order that the orders were received. So get your order placed and you'll be on the front end of the receiving line for your kits. And then when do we get the supply list? We are targeting in early December to have the supply list posted up on VBS Tools. We, of course, will shout it from the mountaintop, or at least Julia will put it all over social media when that's available. And we are working hard on that. So we know that those are things that directors want to have as soon as possible. Questions on format. Jody, how can this person make Stellar work for their preteens?
Oh, preteens. This theme is just made for older kids. We often use preteens as in the crew, what we found is they think they want to opt out, but they really want to participate. So in the past, we would have an older preteen who would say, no, I'm too cool for VBS. And we would say, okay, you can help in games. And then we would spend the whole games time trying to pull them out of games. So I think the best place to use those older kids is to make them part of the crew, but say, you're my assistant crew leader. And they get the questions, they get to experience Bible, they get to experience games and Imagination Station. But so you've given them the freedom to be a kid, but you've given them a very special role. And they do a great job and they really shine in that. So that's how I would say it's a great way to use upper elementary kids.
And if you have your like middle school age, we do have a youth leader manual that is, Jody, I'm not remembering what it's called.
Quasar, it's called Quasar.
Okay, Quasar. So we do have a youth manual option that you can use if you want those older kids or middle school to be a part of it. We've even had some churches that want to do preschool through adults, take that youth leader manual and use that as the jumping off point for an adult experience as well. So know that that's available. We have another question related to format on what customizable options does Stellar include in your Stellar digital pieces. You have your customizable schedules where you can put different things in there, notes at the bottom of that. I don't know if this person is with us here, if you have another specific question on that. But you can customize your schedules, as far as customizing options. I don't know if you're talking about like just changing things out of the curriculum. So if you're there and you want to put something else into the chat, we'd be glad to answer that. And I'll just pause right now and ask Tracy and Julie or Megan, is there anything in the chat right now that we should address?
No, I think we've answered them all in the chat.
Okay, perfect. We have a couple of questions related to supplies. What's the best way to get supplies donated for making the spaces? So that's kind of sounds like a decorating thing. My first thing would say, ask and get the word out early at your church. Again, we do have those templates for donations included in your director manual, and new this year, we have the VBS gift registry option. And so you will be able, for some of those really specific decorating needs for your Imagination Station room or for Bible or whatever, you could actually add that into your gift registry. So people could just click and donate the money right towards that. And as far as what supplies we can start to gather right now, we do have an article posted out on VBS Tools that we posted this July of things that you could save from previous VBSs. And so maybe we can get that posted into the chat. I will give you a heads up though. You're going to need some Christmas lights for preschool Bible. Now's the time to go buy those Christmas lights, just like white lights for day one in preschool Bible adventures. Now's the time to get
think of all the stars. Think of all the stars that are out at Christmas. That's kind of a big Christmassy thing, a very fun thing to add to your clearance list.
Yes, and I think the other thing that's mentioned in that is there is a plastic round saucer sled that's used on the lunar lander, if I'm recalling right. So if we can get that article popped in there, that'll be helpful for you. Somebody wants to know how to make, we're going to segue to decorating. Somebody wants to know how to make amazing planet decorations. We will be posting out on VBS Tools all of the decorating instructions. Once you get your kit, of course, you'll have the how-to steps on how to make that amazing, the front of the stage is so exciting this year because it's so different than grass and rocks and all that. I mean, it just has a completely different feel. And there's the opportunity to do some really cool things with lighting because of the whole space effect in there. So we will have lots of step-by-step instructions showing up on VBS Tools. Right now, there are some pictures up there that you can look at and decorating videos and instructions. Megan, do we have a target date for that?
December. We are targeting December. And also, I just want to pop in too and say,
sure.
Our team here at Group does an amazing job of coming up with that main set. And we know that a lot of churches have very talented decorators and carpenters as well that can help build those sets. But we also know that it can be a little bit intimidating when you first look at it. So we have some really easy to do options for those main sets as well. I mean, we have a backdrop that is gorgeous that you can just pop right up. Our 3D display this year is actually going to be a lunar lander, which is super cool. I've put it together myself. It is easy to do. And so we have some really good options if you are a little intimidated by that set. But even the set itself, I would say like watching that set come together, because not a decorator or a carpenter here, but watching that set come together, it is actually one of our easier sets to do. So, but we have options for no matter your budget or just even your level of decorating expertise.
Megan, isn't there actually a poster pack to create a lunar lander also?
There is also a poster pack to create a lunar lander. So there's really 3 different ways to approach that main set area. And the truth is they're all a wow. They will all wow your kids.
It's exciting. So exciting. Okay, moving on to administration. So Jody, this person wants to know, what are the must-haves for a successful VBS? And before you reply, I just want to say from my VBS heart is just the desire to do something life-changing for kids. It starts there, because that's why we do VBS, is that we ultimately want kids to grow closer to Jesus. And so having the desire to do that is where it starts. But I'll let Jody jump in on that too.
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder, because I agree. It's really the first thing you have to have is a great attitude. And have your why. Understand why you're doing VBS. It's not about you. It's about those kids and having your focus and your heart kind of in the right spot. So that is the very first thing. I think obviously your starter kit, really our goal is to put everything in that starter kit that you need. It's got all of the materials. It's got everything to help you be organized. It's got your music. We have so many training videos now with lab, which I don't even know if we've really talked about. But we have training lab videos. So I think the materials that you need are all going to be in that kit. And then I would go online. I think the things you got to have are, we have training videos that show a station leader leading Bible. And then we pause and say, here's why they're doing that. Those short videos are powerful. And I would say that's a must have for your team to really set them up for success. So I would say great attitude, a starter kit, and check out the training videos.
Well, and you know something, we might as well just spill the beans right now, Jody. Training Lab for 2023, when you purchased your kit, it is what, Megan?
Free.
Free. Yes, it's included.
It is free with purchase or with the purchase of the kit. So VBS Training Labs, for those of you who don't know, they are online on-demand videos that you can share with your entire team. For Stellar specifically, we have in-action videos. So we actually show you, we have someone go through a whole day 1 of your main stations. And that's just a great tool for your station leaders to watch and kind of see how we do it as it's written. And so we're excited that this year we're going to offer it for free. And once you purchase your kit, when those labs become available, you'll receive an email with a code.
So that's exciting. So that's going to cover a lot of your volunteer needs. We do have some questions in there on how to train volunteers and recruiting them. Using the Training Lab, this year it's a free tool that you have access to. One of my favorite pieces about that is, as a director, you email out to your volunteers the videos that they need to watch, and then you know when they've watched them. I'm like, yes, we'll finally a way to keep track of all the volunteers and making sure they've gotten what they need. And there are also some new recruiting videos this year that will be available too. So we really are trying. We know that VBS is impossible without volunteers, and we hear that from you. So we really are trying to come alongside and provide even more ways for you to be successful in recruiting those volunteers and then making sure that they are highly equipped and ready to go for a life-changing week with your kids.
Well, we've got a great question in the chat. Are training labs replacing VBS FunShops?
That's a great question, Tracy. Do you want to answer that?
Well, Sharon. Yeah, actually, training labs and FunShops are 2 different things.
Yes.
Currently, we don't have FunShops scheduled. It's a big undertaking, and it's a big across the country face-to-face undertaking. And we don't have any scheduled for the moment. But we may be looking at doing some different types of VBS events in the near future. But training labs themselves are strictly across the board training for all your VBS staff. And that's a little bit different than what FunShops were.
Absolutely, absolutely. Moving into our next kind of bucket of questions here is follow-up, and we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, ideas for following up with families after VBS. Again, do the simple things, invite them back that Sunday right after VBS and let them be a part of the worship service, and then think about what are things that your church already does that would be a great on-ramp for those families into your church. We've at our church have gone with our seasonal events as a great way. You know, it's less intimidating for somebody who doesn't regularly attend church to come back to an event that was kind of similar to VBS experience, and then gradually bring them into the, you know, the week-to-week ministry opportunities that your church offers. And there might be some other ideas that people can pop into the chat there, but just having an intentional plan is the first place that we need to start. There's a question, this is kind of my other category of, will there be a fall festival curriculum? We love getting questions like this because it helps us gauge what the interest is, what the need is. Right now, we're kind of past fall festival for this season. So at the present moment, that would be a no, but we hear the question and we're always looking at, you know, what are the needs of people like you and me who are serving in a local church, and how can we come alongside with that. We have a couple of really specific questions for Babylon and pets, just a couple. One is somebody wanted to know when the Babylon kits are going to release. They start on January 9th. And when can we start ordering supplies for the VBS of our choice? And I'm going to let Tracy or Megan take that question. So like not the kits, but like their student items they're wondering about. When can they start ordering that?
Actually, the kits will start releasing January 2nd. The ancillaries, all the student items, things that aren't related to the kit will release March 1st.
But when can they start ordering them? That's the question.
You can order them. We're going to have them up on the website here, hopefully in December.
Okay.
And then at that point, you can start pre-ordering and get in line for being first on that shipping list when they start shipping in March.
Awesome. And then the last question is, when do the pet kits release? And that is February 21st. And am I correct in that? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. And we are at the end of our time here. And I'm going to ask Jody if you would wrap us in prayer. And then Megan's going to put up our contact slides so we can be in touch with people if there's additional questions.
Great. I'm excited about that. Let's pray. God, we love children's ministry. We love that we get to reach kids. We love the impact that this 1 week of exciting ministry has. We know that there are so many kids who this will be the first time they hear about Jesus. And then they take that home to their families, and the impact is so big. And we just want to be your humble servants. We want to do your will and do things your way. So Lord, each one who's here and those who couldn't make it, Lord, give us wisdom. We need wisdom to move and do things that you want us to do. Bless the efforts of each of these people. We're so thankful for the work that they do in their hearts. We love you and are thankful that you are with us all across the world in all these different places. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. And we do want to know that this is not the end of the conversation. So Megan's sharing a slide of how to be in touch with us. And you are never out there by yourself. We have an amazing team. You met a few of our sales team who are on the call with us here as well. And they would love to have a longer conversation with you and really come alongside so you can just have the best possible VBS experience ever. So thanks for joining us. You can go back to your day, grab lunch or wherever the next thing takes you. But thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you soon.